Life as You Own It with Mark McDougall and Craig Miller.
Remember, you got questions, we've got answers. 800-492-4664. You may not take the time to educate yourself about the single largest investment and opportunity you have, that investment in the roof over your head in real estate.
We talk about your home, financing, making investments in real estate. We give you the facts, folks.
You know, it's just good old-fashioned horse sense that we like to talk about. And we also throw in some other horse stuff, too, just for fun.
All right, I'm Mark McDougall, and Craig Miller is here. And I think you've got a little cold, don't you, Craig?
Yes, unfortunately.
Yes, and actually the role of Craig Miller played by Megan Clark today and Ron Booth. Both Megan and Ron will be filling in for Craig. It's tough work, but I think you guys are up to the task. Welcome, folks.
Thanks for inviting us.
All right, well, thanks for stepping in. Unfortunately, Craig had to bail on me at the last minute, but I think you guys are up to the task. I'm Mark McDougall. These two folks are Craig Miller today, and we are Life as You Own It. Thanks so much for checking us out. If this is the first time, we think you're in for a treat. That's our opinion. If you're a regular listener, then you know what's in store. We're going to give you some good tips on how to be a more sophisticated consumer. We like to bring it home, focus on that big investment you've made in the roof over your head. And today's show, well, we're gonna uncover the truth on some myths. There's an article that we're going to discuss later, and some of these key components that are financial, potentially myths, maybe financial truisms that we think are worth covering in today's show. It begins with, is diversification overrated? Is real estate a good investment? Is a bank the best place for your money? We've got these commonly accepted financial principles that we're going to demystify. You like that, Ron? If Craig was here, we'd have about a 5-minute segment on me speaking, saying demystify. I just can't, it's sometimes, it just demystify. Does that make sense? How do you say the word?
Demystify.
Demystify. Okay. All right, so also, boy, these rates are high. How does anybody afford a house anymore? To our listeners that bought their first house in the late 80s and walked uphill to and from school, it's all about perspective, isn't it? What is the new normal, and how does that match up with your expectations? How does this impact your buying power, and does it really matter? Also, do you guys hear anything about this Facebook thing that's going on? Not the Ron's like, what's the Facebook thing? Is that a book about faces? Is Facebook?
Not that much older than you are.
You're not, and you've got more hair, more gray hair. Is Facebook impacting your credit score? How about Twitter, Instagram, Pinterest? Hold off on that next tweet, Megan, until you hear the latest.
All right, holding off.
Do you tweet, Megan?
I do not tweet.
You book, though, right?
I do book.
You Facebook, Ron?
I've tweeted.
You tweet and Facebook?
And Facebook, yeah.
All right, so you're going to want to stay tuned for that later in the hour. Also, we're going to give you the update on interest rates. I'll fill the role in that segment. I'll fill the role of Craig Miller because that secret formula, the black box of interest rates, only I have access to when Craig is gone. Like we have the nuclear, the nuke, it's like the nukes, which we actually have access to those too. Remember, folks, if you stay tuned throughout the hour, you're going to stay tuned through the hour, but we've got our should you stay or should you go scenarios you won't want to miss. Real life customers or clients or people that just listen to the show that want to know, does it make sense for me to get the heck out of this house, to get the heck out of this mortgage? Should I take action or should I just sit tight with what I've got? If you've got your own question, remember you can reach out to us at 800-492-4664 or you can email us questions@lifeasyouownit.com. Remember, you can podcast the show, you can go to iHeartRadio, or you can demand, if you're just passing through a city that you're listening to the show on their local station, you can call your local station and say, we want Life as You Own It. It is fun and informative. Okay, Ron, so why do I have you on the show today? It's actually a rhetorical question. No, I'm just... So,
I
Ron,
thought you knew the answer.
I do. Maybe,
Okay.
Well, Ron, you might tell our listeners what your role is in...
So I'm the Chief Operating Officer here at First Trust Mortgage.
Right.
And so the idea, at least, is that I kind of keep the train on the tracks.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so you're going to attempt to keep the train on the tracks with the show today with Craig's apps. And Megan is our Chief Underwriter.
Yes.
And so many more things at First Trust. And she's been a guest on the show before. And Ron stepped in also and she's going to just make sure that Ron and I don't say anything mortgage related that just doesn't make sense. Going to call us out.
Exactly.
You're going to say, I'm pending that comment for and I'm going to need
research.
I'm going to need additional documentation before I can
right.
approve those comments,
That's right.
Mark.
That is correct.
We would have a very short show if that were the case. Okay, so anything that any shout outs you want to give? You know, we're now in what are we in? 7 states, 6, 7 states, and we are spreading those wings. We just added some new affiliates in Alabama, and we'd like to welcome WTKI Huntsville, Alabama, and WEKI Decatur, Alabama. Those of you listening to the show for a number of years know that this very song used to open our show each and every weekend. When we were the Truth and Lending Show, every week we opened and closed with Sweet Home Alabama.
Why is that?
Why? Well, because it's got home in it.
Huh?
That's part of it.
Yeah.
We think of home as Sweet Home, but also because my family, the McDougalls, are from Alabama, so I was very pleased when I got notification that we had new affiliates, 4 new stations, pick us up in the lovely state of Alabama. So if you're listening to us for the first time this weekend, thank you, and give a shout out to the McDougalls you know down there in Alabama. Actually, they're lower Alabama, most of them. My kin are lower Alabama, down around Geneva. I like to say my family's from L.A.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty sophisticated.
Now,
That's lower Alabama, though.
Do you eat the funny peanuts down there?
Boiled peanuts, I sure do.
Peanuts.
That is
Yeah.
when my dad when they go down, now you can get them at other stores in the Midwest.
Uh-huh.
But whenever my family goes down there, they get some authentic boiled peanuts, bring them back, and it's, I'd say, Dad, I'd rather take, the $10 cash, but I'll eat those boiled peanuts.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, so I'm gonna bring something in for you, Ron. That is your
That's okay,
prize
I've had
for
'em.
being on the
I've
show
had 'em.
today.
And don't need to have them again.
No.
Yes,
I'm
you
good.
do. Okay, so folks, we've got the big topic we're going to discuss today is going to be the concept, these 5 financial potential myths, and it's really an article that I read at Bankrate that made me contemplate, are these myths? Are these good, is this good information? Are these actually, are these methods that our listeners should follow and utilize? So you want to jump in, guys? You want to do this? Because after we take our first break, I'm going to give interest rates, and we may have one of those should you stay or should you go segments jump in. So, myth number 1. Banks are the best place for money. Ron, what do you think? Are banks the best place for money?
Banks are a good place for money.
They are. It's safe, and it's insured.
Yes. They have big vaults
They do.
and lots of armed guards.
There you go.
Uh-huh.
Savings accounts are the equivalent of modern-day mattress stuffing, says L. Kaplan, CEO of Lexion Capital Management, a New York City-based asset management firm. Savings accounts cause you to lose money over time because their low interest rates do not keep pace with inflation. Cardone says this myth stems from a time when our grandparents or parents were able to put money in a bank account and get a hefty return. This is no longer true. Okay, folks, so are banks the best place for your money? Well, they are the best place for your working capital. So I'm going to say, no, this is not a myth. It is reality. Banks are the best place for your working capital, the money you need access to. Are they the best place to put your money to get the highest rate of return? Heck to the no. They are not. There are so many other investments that you can make that will get a higher rate of return than a quarter, 0.25, or 0. So is it a myth that banks are the best place for your money? No. But it is a myth that banks are the best place for all of your money. All right. We
Makes
agree?
sense.
All right. What is that sound? Could that possibly be the theme song to Oklahoma? No, it's not. It is actually Should You Stay or Should You Go, folks. You know the drill here. We have Alicia from Oklahoma. Oh, listen, it is. He's good. Oklahoma City emailed the following question. Hi, guys. My husband and I have a rental property, which was originally our first home. It has a rate of 7.5% on a balance of $109,000. We think it's worth $140,000 to $150,000. We'll probably keep it as a rental for 5 or 6 more years. So, should we refinance or stay with what we have? What do you guys think?
I would refinance.
Yeah, Ron, good. And you guys don't deal in the rate game every day. It was a
No.
good guess.
Yeah.
They're at 7.5%. You need to go, go, go. The one thing we want to make sure, though, is you don't pay a bunch of fees. So go, but do your homework. Make sure you look into the lowest cost or potential no-cost refi option, since you don't know if you're going to own the house more than the 5 or 6 years. All right, when we come back, we're going to cover more of those potential myths, and we're going to tell you whether they're good advice or bad advice. Life is Jonah. Stay tuned. All right, Life is Jonah. Thanks for hanging out with us. We hope that wherever you are during this these winter months, you are staying warm. And, there's a good chance now that we've added some of the southern states, or I should say a southern state in Alabama, I bet you it's a little warmer there than it is in the heartland. So we hope you are keeping it toasty wherever you are. And we think you can keep it toasty if you check us out every weekend, because you know what? We're going to give you some information that might make your temperature rise. Maybe it's going to be that we're going to dispel some myths or actually validate something that some people think are myths. So we're going to wind through these, folks. We've got our 5. We're discussing an article on the Bankrate.com website, which is a great place to get information, average interest rates, etc. And it talks about the 5 myths, the 5 biggest myths in the financial world that they believe are financial, really, nonsense. So number 2 is, a penny saved is a penny earned. Many people believe that scrimping to save and hoarding money will make them wealthy. Not true, says Steve Seibold, author of How Rich People Think. The real key to wealth is earning, Seibold says. Unfortunately, if you're making $50,000 a year, it will be nearly impossible to accumulate large sums of money, even if you save all your extra pennies. People need to stop always looking at the expense portion of their budget. It is usually the shortage of income that gets people in trouble. Those who want to have a large nest egg need to stop thinking in terms of trading time for dollars. So, he goes on to say that, in fact, most fortunes can be created almost overnight if you have the right idea at the right time. The solution is not to cut back on the lattes you drink, but to get a higher paying job. All right, folks. I'm going to say that that is not the best advice, and I think that the concept that you're going to think up $1 million idea, or that suddenly you're going to wake up and you are instantly going to get a higher paying job because, well, you want to, is one that we encourage you to pursue. However, we don't encourage that to be your investment strategy. Furthermore, we recognize, and it's the reason we do the show, the resiliency of our fellow citizens is that sometimes we may forget what are even good lessons, and we may have practices or a lack of practices that can prevent us from achieving financial success. Or maybe it's success in our career, maybe it's success in our relationship, because we default to sometimes short-sighted thinking, no real plan or strategy. I'm going to tell you, if you manage the expense side, it is much easier to manage the other side, the income side. If you think you can always out-earn and keep on earning enough money and earn more and find that opportunity that will create more wealth for you, but you're not going to manage the expense side of the ledger, you will not get ahead. Yeah. So I'm going to tell you, first and foremost, focus on the budget. Secondly, once you have the budget in order, look at ways to not only increase the value of you to your employer, improve your education, all of those things, but to also look at how to diversify your investments too that can create potential real wealth for you. Any comments on those, Ron and Megan?
I think it's like anything in life. Diligence pays off, and a budget it represents discipline and watching what's going on. For instance, I got a personal example. $5 a month comes out of my checking account because my daughter wants the opportunity to save when she goes back to the tanning bed. So the initial fee is $50. So my wife said, well, she pays that $5 a month so that she won't have to pay the $50 again. And I said, well, that opportunity is costing us $60 a year.
Right.
So being diligent and understanding that where your money going is a huge thing, and it helps you feel like you're in control.
There you go.
Perfect advice.
All right, myth number 3, my home is a good investment. Not these days, Cardone says. This is a complete lie, he says. A house is not the American dream. It is a nightmare. Housing prices have dropped from the bubble years. Then there are the increasing costs of property tax and maintenance. This doesn't mean you shouldn't own a home. Just be aware that your house should be looked as an expense, not an investment. It is merely a place to live. Okay, well, first of all, I think that history can show that while real estate is not the best short-term investment, it is a fantastic long-term investment, especially when you consider the fact you got to put a roof over your head. So when we identify, we can look at an investment as, if I'm going to write a check for $1,500, and I have one vehicle that I can write the check to, which is me paying rent. That vehicle will call my landlord. And I can have a similar expense of $1,500. If I've factored in all the expenses associated and the tax efficiency of $1,500, one of those investments has no opportunity for a rate of return. Which one is it, Megan?
That might be the car.
Or the rent.
Or the
You're
rent.
sorry. Yeah,
Car,
caught on that.
example.
Yeah, the rent. And there is one that has an opportunity for return on investment. Which one is it, Ron?
That would be the house.
The ownership of the home. So, folks, I will tell you that it is complete nonsense that real estate does not, or your home cannot make a great investment. The thing you have to consider is, does it meet your lifestyle needs? Are you comparing apples to apples when you consider the investment? And if you do a budget and you have a financial plan and it is a long-term strategy because of the incentives, we'll say, that our government gives, the deductibility of the mortgage interest, also the capital gains, the freedom from capital gains. If you're single and you have a $250,000 increase in that asset value, or married and filing jointly a $500,000 increase in that asset, make it a legitimate investment. The issue is, if you double down on it, you spend too much on your house, you don't have a budget or financial plan, and it's your only investment, then it's a problem. So, not a myth. Good advice. All right, potential myth number 4. Paying with cash and debit cards is best. Paying in cash or by debit card is always a good strategy, right? After all, if you pay in cash, you can't spend more than you have. True, but you may be missing out on goodies offered by credit card companies, Coos says. Coos is someone that obviously opined in this article. And I'm going to tell you right now, folks, that too is not a myth. That is reality. If you pay with cash, do you spend more or do you spend less, Megan, than if you put it on a credit card?
Probably spend less.
You're right.
I would imagine.
If you go to a restaurant, Ron, and you go and you pay the bill, do you tip more with when you have cash or credit card?
Probably credit card, yeah.
That's right. So, folks, I'm here to tell you, credit card companies are in business and making a ton of money, not because people believe that they spend less whenever they use credit. It's because people like to use credit. They spend more when they use credit. We encourage you, use cash as much as you can. Do not assume that the rewards you receive from these will outweigh the interest costs that you will pay. All right, and myth number 5 is you need to diversify. You've been told that diversifying your investments means you spread your risk around. If one investment tanks, you still have money in others to see you through. But most Americans don't have enough money for that kind of diversification. And even if they did, it isn't the best strategy for them, says Chris Miles, cash flow expert at moneyripples.com. Diversifying is like buying many brands of TVs in case one of them doesn't work after a few months, Miles said. Shouldn't we research it out first, then buy one TV? Too many people throw money into things they don't understand or care about. Find 1 or 2 things that you know about and love, then invest. The turnaround kings Cardone agrees. Wall Street loves to perpetuate this myth because then you'll need them. I'm extremely good at a handful of things, then I leave the rest alone. A professional ball player, for example, commits to one sport, not many sports. Focusing allows you to hit it out of the park. All right. And how many professional athletes have filed bankruptcy after making millions of dollars?
A bunch.
This is good information, folks, so I'm going to tell you that it doesn't matter the source. You have to educate yourself. And because someone says that these things, it might be popular to say these are myths, I can tell you right now that you do need to diversify. Diversification doesn't mean that you spread money into a lot of small investments through 1 million places. Diversification means you have a financial strategy. You don't have all your retirement savings in home equity. You don't have all your retirement savings in Apple stock. And you don't spend all of your time practicing baseball and peeing away your money. Does that make sense? All right, folks, whenever we come back, we are going to get on down with those national average of interest rates, and we're also going to tell you about that credit impact that using Facebook or Twitter or Instagram might have. Stay tuned. Life as you own it. All right, we're back. Life as you own it. And before we took the break, we were talking about the big picture of interest rates, and what 83% of respondents at Redfin thought that a normal interest rate was between 4 and 5%. Okay, well, let me give you some information here. And this is on a 30-year fixed. Well, while rates hovered around 4.3% in November, they have averaged 6.7% since 1990. Rates never once fell below 5% on a 30-year fixed, Ron, until March 2009. So, folks, 30-year fixed mortgages did not fall below 5% until March of 2009, according to Redfin data. And I'm going to say I think that data is accurate because I've been in the mortgage lending industry now for 18 years. So, the more interesting piece is that most of the respondents, whether they're first-time home buyers or seasoned home buyers, most responded in the same fashion. It indicates how short-term our short-term memory is what we consider the new normal. Whatever environment we're in, for that moment, we can absorb it to be the new normal environment until something changes that. The good thing, I will say, of the housing bubble and burst and the recession was that people started maybe getting a little more serious about how they save their money and how they'd spend their money, and started developing what we'll call responsible long-term practices. Some of them did. Now, it is my fear, and the reason we do this show, that as home appreciation continues to increase, and we've discussed a study that shows that for every $1,000 in home appreciation, people save $3 less. I'm sorry, for every $100 in home appreciation, people save $3 less. That's great. They save $3 less because they feel more wealthy and spend more wealthy. That is kind of the American psyche. That's what we're fighting against, is saying just because you've got an asset that increased in value, but it is not liquid, that doesn't mean you should change your spending habits.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So, those interest rates, I'll tell you, 6.7 as the average, and that's going to send us right into where the national average for interest rates are just this very week, folks. And it's important for you to understand the averages, but the most important thing for you to understand is you want to get the lowest overall cost on your mortgage. The interest rate doesn't mean as much as the fees that you pay and the important break-even formula that you implement before you determine whether you pay 1 point, 2 points, 0 points, or even pay your closing costs. So on a 30-year fixed last week, on a $200,000 loan amount, closing costs range from $2,500 to $10,000. I know, folks, that's a big range. And this is with a 760 credit score and an 80% loan to value. Your interest rate on a 30-year fixed would be 4.57%, paying just under 0.5% in origination or discount. So that means, best case scenario, you're going to pay $2,500 or roll it into the loan, plus 0.5%, which is how much on a $200,000 loan, Ron? I know you can.
$1,000.
There you go, $1,000. You're going to pay $3,500. Remember, if you're only going to save a quarter on interest rate, it's going to take you, depending on the loan size, on that $200,000 loan, it is going to take you over 9 years to achieve a break even on that difference in interest rate. So make sure you do the math. Now, if you pay no cost to get that quarter lower rate, you have an instant savings on that interest. Okay, on a 15-year fixed, the national average interest rate was 3.65, so just under 3 3/4, paying 40 basis, just under 0.5%. And then on a 5/1 ARM, interest rates actually moving up on the 5/1 ARM. We're right at 3.5%, paying just under 0.5% also in origination or discount. Okay, so there you have it, folks. Remember, those are the averages. Your unique situation may afford you a better or a worse rate. Okay, there's the music, folks. That means it's time for another Should You Stay or Should You Go? Erica from Kansas City, Kansas, called us with the following question. I rent from a family member for $500 per month. I have a very tight budget. My friend, who is a part-time realtor, said I should be buying a home now. She said $800 on a mortgage is the same as $500 in rent, which has me confused. She said I could get approved for $800 per month based on my income, but I feel like that would be very hard for me. Please help. So I'm going to answer that one. Stay. Folks, never make a major investment, if you don't fully understand what you're investing in and if it's going to keep you awake at night. So what I'd recommend that you do is consider what you can afford for that $500 per month, or that $600, or whatever it might be that you're comfortable with. Does that cover the needs? And it also, does it help you sleep at night? Can you truly afford the expense of home ownership? And Ron, tell our listeners, what are some of the expenses that they may not think of other than just the mortgage payment?
You have to keep the furnace
Yeah.
going.
The heating and air conditioning.
If it goes down, it's $4,000 or $5,000.
Yeah.
If you need to have the house painted, it
Yeah.
can be up to $4,000.
Yep.
And if you don't like doing that stuff, you got to hire somebody to do it, and that's even more money. So it's really, really expensive.
That's right. So make sure speak with a person that's got. I'd recommend you speak with a certified mortgage planner, but definitely do nothing until you've done enough math that you know I'm really comfortable with this payment. Okay, what else do we have to cover? So we've talked about interest rates, we've talked about where they are, where they're going, we've talked about the fact that these young whippersnappers and even their contemporaries now think that 4 to 5% is the new normal. Now, what I didn't touch on is the fact that it may not matter, folks, because there's a little phenomena you can pull up some spreadsheets on this, Ron. You can do it, or any of our listeners can, and watch the trend line, or look at a graph that shows where the S&P has tracked and where interest rates have, and you can see a nice little we'll call it a parallel between the two of those, where the higher interest rates and the higher the performance in the stock market, we'll say the greater the average return in the stock market. Also, we'll see the greater interest rate, the cost of borrowing funds. What you'll also see is a consistent margin between the two. So if the S&P is returning 14% and interest rates are 9%, or the S&P is at 7 and interest rates are 3%, you still have a 4 to 5% spread. I'm going to elaborate what I mean by that, because I've got confused looks in the room. Whenever we return, life as you own it. Their methods to slow down the economy is to do what, folks? Raise interest rates to slow down the economy. Now, the reality is, if you look at the data, you can see when we have a very high rate of return in the stock market, we also have an increase in interest rates. So back when you paid 13%, Ron, you would have been crushing it in the market. The average return would have been 16 to 18%. So folks, my point here is understand that yes, you want to get that low interest rate, and you want to lock it in long term. But do not get too caught up on the phenomena that, oh my gosh, I shouldn't buy at 7% when my 401k and everything else is going up at a significant clip, and the home that I buy now is continuing to appreciate because our economy is strong. It is all relative. So the key thing is, don't get too hung up on interest rates, because I can tell you, always, without fail, as interest rates come down as the economy slows down, because that's the Federal Reserve's goal to stimulate the economy, or that's what they do to stimulate the economy. Lower interest rates, get people borrowing more money. Interest rates go up only when the economy is overheating, i.e. the stock market is performing well. And if you're diversified, that means you have real estate, you have long-term investments, you have short-term investments, your rate of return, everything from the CDs to the money markets, all that, when you're paying it, is at a higher clip. So don't get too hung up. Understand the numbers, understand this phenomena, and you will be going, you know what? I'm looking for the day when interest rates are at 7%, because I'm going to be getting 11%, and I'm diversified. So my rate of return in my 401k is crushing it. Make sense? Mm-hmm. All right. So we have this interesting little information. We found borrowers hit social hurdles. Lenders scan Facebook and other accounts for red flags. More lending companies are mining Facebook, Twitter, and other social media data to help determine a borrower's creditworthiness or identity, a trend that is raising concerns among consumer groups and regulators. Now, folks, many of us may post everything that's going on in our lives, especially what? If you're on LinkedIn, maybe a job change. On Facebook, how many people say, I just told my employer to jump off of a ledge? So, folks, I think it's a pretty cool strategy. Lending companies, some of which are backed with venture funding from Google Ventures, the venture capital arm of Google Inc., and Excel Partners, Facebook investors are looking at potential problems such as whether applicants put the same job information on their loan application as they post on LinkedIn, or if they shared on Facebook that they had been let go by an employer. There are other components as they get more technical to identify social strata, etc., to determine, to use information that credit providers will use to target market, etc. The more impactful one that we would say to your credit or your opportunity to gain credit is the fact that what you post on the internet, it will stay on the internet and it will be used. In this instance, folks, I wouldn't say it's being used against you, because when you sign a mortgage application, an auto application, etc., before you close on that, when you close it, you're signing something saying that all the information there is true and accurate. If you left your job, it wouldn't be true and accurate to sign something that says you're still on it. Make sense? All right, any last things you want to share? We're down to our last half minute. Megan?
So let's shout out to Pratt, Kansas.
Pratt, Kansas. Who's in Pratt?
My son Avery is at Pratt Community College playing baseball down there, so I want to shout out to him.
There you go. And Megan? All right, that's all she's got.